To the world, they looked like Hollywood's golden couple, Ali MacGraw, the elegant beauty of love story, and Steve McQueen, the rugged king of cool. Together, they embodied everything glamorous about 1970s fame: red carpets, fast cars, and endless magazine covers. But behind the flashbulbs and smiles, their marriage was far from perfect. What the world saw as passion was, in truth, a storm, one filled with jealousy, control, and heartbreak. Ali MacGraw once described her love for McQueen as like being caught in a tornado. It was thrilling, intoxicating, and completely consuming. But what fans never realized was how deeply the relationship changed her, and not always for the better. McQueen, already battling his own demons from fame and insecurity, struggled with Ali's success. While the world adored her for her grace and vulnerability, he grew possessive, fearful that Hollywood's spotlight would pull her away. In public, they were the picture of love and glamour. In private, their home became a battlefield, a place where two powerful personalities collided, unable to find peace in the chaos. Friends who knew them said that for all their beauty and fame, they were two broken souls trying to save each other and failing miserably. Today, we revisit the truth behind their legendary love, the passion, the pain, and the hidden cost of being Hollywood's most talked-about couple. Because the real story of Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about two hearts that burned too bright and too fast to survive. It was 1972 when Ali MacGraw's life changed forever. She was already one of Hollywood's brightest stars, fresh off her Academy Award-nominated performance in Love Story, a film that had made her the symbol of idealized romance across the world. Her beauty was effortless, her presence magnetic, and her career seemed unstoppable. But when she met Steve McQueen on the set of The Getaway, everything she thought she knew about love and success began to unravel. Steve McQueen, by contrast, was Hollywood's rebel, the king of cool, known for his brooding charisma and dangerous charm. He wasn't just an actor. He was a cultural icon representing freedom, masculinity, and rebellion. But behind his calm exterior, McQueen carried a lifetime of emotional scars, abandonment, anger, and a deep mistrust of the world around him. When Ali walked into his life, he saw something pure, something untouched by the cynicism he'd come to know, and that made him both love her and fear losing her. Their chemistry was undeniable. On the set of The Getaway, the spark between them was so intense that even the crew whispered about it. They shared stolen glances, quiet conversations, and a connection that felt electric. But the problem was, Ali was married to Robert Evans, the powerful head of Paramount Pictures. Evans had been instrumental in her rise to fame, and their marriage had once seemed solid. Yet when McQueen entered the picture, Ali felt something she couldn't explain. "He was dangerous," she later admitted, "and I was drawn to that danger like a moth to a flame." By the time filming wrapped, the affair had become impossible to hide. Hollywood buzzed with gossip, and Evans was left devastated. Ali's decision to leave him for McQueen shocked the industry. It was more than a love affair. It was a scandal. To many, it looked like she had traded power for passion, security for chaos. But for Ali, it felt like destiny. "I was in love," she said simply. Completely, foolishly, blindly in love. When the two finally went public, the media couldn't get enough. They were beautiful, famous, and wildly unpredictable. McQueen with his motorcycles and macho mystique, and Ali with her elegance and vulnerability became Hollywood's ultimate contrast. Together, they looked unstoppable. But privately, cracks were already forming. McQueen's need for control soon became apparent. He didn't like Ali working with other men, didn't want her going to Hollywood parties, and grew possessive whenever she received attention. He wanted a traditional wife, someone to stay home, away from the spotlight. But Ali, a fiercely independent spirit, had built her identity through her career. The tug-of-war between them was immediate and painful. Friends who visited their home described it as emotionally charged. Moments of deep affection followed by explosive arguments. Yet Ali couldn't walk away. She saw in Steve a man who was haunted, a man she wanted to heal. He could be cruel, she later admitted, but he could also be so tender that it broke my heart. Their love affair wasn't built on stability. It was built on intensity. Every high was euphoric, and every low was devastating. And as much as Allie tried to hold on to her independence, McQueen's jealousy began to consume their relationship. The woman who had once charmed the world with grace and confidence was slowly disappearing behind the shadow of a man she adored, a man who couldn't let go of his own fears. What had begun as Hollywood's most glamorous romance was already showing the signs of tragedy beneath the surface. When Ally McGraw married Steve McQueen, the world saw it as a match made in Hollywood heaven, the elegant beauty of love story uniting with the rugged charm of Bullitt. But behind those glamorous photographs and magazine covers was a storm few could imagine. At first, their relationship burned with the kind of passion that could light up a movie screen. They were both rebellious spirits, drawn to danger and intensity. Steve was captivated by Ali's poise and intelligence, while she admired his fearless confidence and wild nature. Yet, as soon as the honeymoon phase faded, the cracks began to show, deep and unrelenting. Steve McQueen was one of Hollywood's biggest stars, but his fame came with demons. His childhood had been marked by abandonment and violence, leaving him with a deep mistrust of people, especially women. Ali, on the other hand, had grown up yearning for stability after a turbulent youth. She believed love could heal. But Steve's version of love was possessive, volatile, and at times frightening. Those close to the couple would later say that McQueen was jealous of Ali's success. While she had just become the face of a generation after Love Story, Steve was at the height of his fame, yet he couldn't stand seeing his wife in the spotlight. He wanted control. He demanded that she quit acting, telling her that no wife of his should kiss another man on screen. For Ali, that demand struck deep. Acting had given her a purpose, a voice, yet she found herself torn between her passion and her husband. Out of love, or perhaps fear of losing him, she stepped away from her career. But the price she paid was far greater than anyone realized. Their marriage became a battleground. Friends recalled seeing bruises of emotional exhaustion on Ali's face. McQueen's temper, fueled by paranoia and drugs, often turned explosive. He would disappear for days, racing motorcycles or partying, leaving Ali to wonder where he was and who he was with. Still, she stayed. She loved him deeply, hoping that beneath all the anger and chaos, the man she had fallen for still existed. In her words years later, she said, "I adored Steve, but I lost myself in that marriage." It was a haunting admission, the kind that revealed just how destructive love can be when it burns too fiercely. At home, things grew colder. Steve's insecurity turned to resentment, and his need for dominance became unbearable. Ali wasn't allowed to have male friends or even go out without permission. She became isolated, surrounded by luxury but imprisoned by fear. Hollywood, of course, remained blind. To the public, they were the ultimate power couple, beautiful, rich, and enviable. But behind closed doors, the reality was far from golden. Their relationship wasn't about partnership anymore. It was about survival. By 1977, Ali could no longer pretend. The woman who once stood on Oscar stages was now a shadow of herself. She began therapy, desperate to reclaim her identity. McQueen, on the other hand, spiraled deeper into paranoia and addiction. The man once celebrated as a rebel hero was now lost in his own darkness. When their marriage finally ended, Ali described it as both devastating and liberating. Leaving him was like breaking free from a spell, she later confessed. And yet, even after all the pain, she never stopped speaking of Steve with compassion. She saw his torment, the broken child behind the Hollywood legend. Their love story wasn't just about passion. It was about the cost of loving someone who couldn't love themselves. It became a cautionary tale for anyone who ever believed that beauty and fame could protect them from heartbreak. For Ali McGraw, the lessons from that marriage would shape the rest of her life. A journey of rediscovery, healing, and forgiveness. After the storm that was her marriage to Steve McQueen, Ali MacGraw found herself standing in the ruins of everything she thought she knew about love, fame, and herself. The woman once idolized as Hollywood's golden girl was now alone, fragile, and searching for meaning beyond the flashbulbs. When their marriage ended in 1978, Ali was emotionally and financially devastated. Steve, who had always insisted on handling their finances, left her with almost nothing. He had demanded she give up her career for him, and now that he was gone, she had no projects, no offers, and no direction. Hollywood had moved on. The same industry that once crowned her America's sweetheart now treated her like a relic of the past. In interviews, Ali later admitted that she wasn't prepared for the emptiness that followed. She had built her life around Steve, his moods, his demands, his shadow. When that was gone, she realized she didn't even know who she was anymore. The fame, the wealth, the adoration, all of it felt meaningless compared to the silence she now faced. To cope, Ali turned inward. She sought refuge in spirituality and self-reflection, something far removed from the glamour of Los Angeles. She moved away from the spotlight, trading red carpets for meditation retreats. It was during this period that she began studying Eastern philosophies, yoga, and mindfulness, practices that helped her slowly rebuild her identity piece by piece. But healing wasn't easy. There were nights when she couldn't sleep, haunted by memories of her marriage, the passion, the fear, and the loss. She once said in an interview, "I realized that I had given away my power. I had stopped being Ali MacGraw and started being Steve McQueen's wife. It took years to find myself again." Despite her heartbreak, Ali never turned bitter. She spoke of Steve not with anger but with empathy. She understood that his demons weren't born in their marriage. They had lived inside him since childhood. His fear of abandonment, his distrust of love, his addiction to control, they were all scars from a painful past he never healed from. After Steve's death in 1980, Ali was deeply affected. She had moved on, but his passing reopened wounds she thought had healed. She attended his funeral quietly, away from cameras, mourning not just the man she loved, but the dream they once shared. It was a moment of closure, the end of a chapter that had defined and nearly destroyed her. In the years that followed, Ali focused on personal growth. She moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, where she found peace and simplicity. She embraced a life of purpose over fame, working as an activist and dedicating herself to humanitarian causes. She also became a strong advocate for women's empowerment, openly discussing the mistakes she made in her marriage, not to shame herself, but to help others avoid losing their identities in love. Her honesty made her an inspiration. Women who had once envied her beauty and fame now admired her strength and wisdom. Ali transformed her pain into purpose, using her story to encourage self-worth and independence. Even as years passed, she remained reflective about her time with Steve McQueen. She once said, "He was the love of my life, but he was also my greatest teacher. Through him, I learned what I will never settle for again." It was a powerful statement, proof that even the most painful experiences can lead to self-discovery. By the 1990s, Ali had finally found peace. Her days of heartbreak were behind her, replaced by gratitude for the lessons she'd learned. She had grown into a woman who no longer sought validation from fame or relationships. She had rediscovered herself, wiser, calmer, and finally free. Ali MacGraw's post-McQueen life became a quiet triumph, not of box office success, but of emotional survival. She showed that even in the aftermath of a love that burns too brightly, there can still be light. As the years rolled on, Ali MacGraw slowly drifted away from the chaos that had once defined her life. No longer the starlet constantly under Hollywood's blinding lights, she embraced something far rarer: peace. After decades of heartache, reinvention, and introspection, she finally found comfort in who she was, not in who the world expected her to be. In the quiet deserts of Santa Fe, New Mexico, Ali built a life rooted in simplicity. Gone were the expensive dresses and Hollywood parties. Instead, her days were filled with art, yoga, community work, and reflection. She lived in a modest adobe home, surrounded by nature and tranquility, a far cry from the turbulence she once knew beside Steve McQueen. Here, she was no longer Ali MacGraw, movie star. She was simply Ali, a woman who had survived fame, love, loss, and come out wiser. Her focus turned toward helping others. Ali became an outspoken advocate for animal rights, women's empowerment, and addiction recovery programs. She often spoke publicly about the lessons she learned from her past, how losing herself in love had cost her more than fame ever could. Her honesty resonated with countless women who had faced similar struggles in silence. When she occasionally returned to the public eye, in interviews, documentaries, or rare red carpet appearances, people were struck by her serenity. Her once fiery energy had been replaced with calm acceptance. "I've made peace with my life," she said in one interview. "The mistakes, the fame, the heartbreak, they were all necessary to make me who I am today." Despite their painful history, Ali continued to speak fondly of Steve McQueen. Decades after his passing, she still referred to him as one of the great loves of her life. She acknowledged that their connection, though destructive at times, was genuine. "Steve was complicated," she said. "He was charming and broken. He loved deeply but didn't know how to be loved. I think we were both searching for something neither of us could give. That kind of forgiveness didn't come overnight. It was the result of years of spiritual practice and self-reflection." Ali learned to view her past not as something to regret, but as something to understand. The pain of her marriage, the downfall of her career, and the loneliness that followed all became part of a greater journey toward wisdom. She also rekindled connections with people from her old Hollywood days. Her reunion with Ryan O'Neal at a 2016 stage production of Love Letters warmed the hearts of fans. Seeing the two stars of Love Story together again reminded audiences of the magic they once created, and of the grace with which Ali carried herself through time. Even now, Ali MacGraw's beauty remains undeniable. But it's no longer the beauty of youth or glamour. It's the beauty of a woman who has lived fully, who has loved, lost, and learned. She once said, "I am grateful for everything, even the heartbreak, because without it, I wouldn't have discovered who I really am." Her story stands as a rare Hollywood tale that doesn't end in tragedy or bitterness. Instead, it ends in peace, a kind of quiet triumph that can only come from within. Ali MacGraw may have once been defined by her relationship with Steve McQueen, but today she's defined by her strength, her grace, and her refusal to let pain destroy her spirit. For fans who remember her as the radiant young woman from Love Story, seeing her now, older, wiser, but still glowing, is profoundly moving. She reminds us all that beauty fades, fame disappears, and even love can break us. But through it all, there's always a chance to rebuild, to forgive, and to find peace. Ali MacGraw's journey proves one timeless truth. Sometimes, the most beautiful stories are not the ones that begin with love, but the ones that end with healing.